Greetings and welcome once more to Sonic Odyssey, the music video channel dedicated to bringing you the last 5 decades or so of music in review and discussion format. Before we get into today's topic, let's get the housekeeping out of the way. Please be sure to like the video by clicking the thumbs up button, which helps you to get the video out to more people. We can always use that. And also you can subscribe to the channel if you're not already a subscriber, and if you like, you can click the little bell icon that appears next to that button, and that way you'll be alerted each time I post a new video. And finally, I would humbly ask you to consider visiting my Patreon page. There's a link right in the show description below, and there you'll see the different tiers that are available if you so desire to help contribute to the channel as an ongoing concern. If you don't have to, but I thank you very much. That's the housekeeping. Let's get on to today's topic. Today we're going to be listening to and discussing a heavy metal band that comes out of the Bay Area of California. They're known as Machine Head, and we're going to be looking at their 10th studio album, which was released just about a month ago, and it's entitled Of Kingdom and Crown. The clip I just played is from the album's second track entitled Choke on the Ashes of Your Hate, and it is, I think, a really good kind of doorway or view into the sound that you're going to hear in the majority of Kingdom and Crown. It really is a very groove-oriented thrash and mostly heavy album. Machine Head was formed in 1991 by Rob Flynn, the sole original remaining member of the band. And in fact, it is this revolving door nature of the band's history over their 30 years of recording, which has seen no fewer than 10 performers being part of the lineup of Machine Head, that has led to a kind of sort of inconsistent output in terms of sound and sonic delivery for the band. But we'll discuss the band members first and get a little bit into their sonic tapestries in just a little bit. So currently on the album we're looking at today, Of Kingdom and Crown, we have the founder, Rob Flynn, providing lead vocals, rhythm guitar, and he's also the primary lyricist and songwriter. On bass we have 3-album veteran Jared McEachern, and making their Machine Head debuts on this record are Václav Kiltika. I'm going to refer to him simply as Vag for the remainder of this video, and he may be known to some viewers of this video for his association with his primary band, his Polish death metal band, which goes by the name of Decapitated. And the other debuting musician on this album is Niveen Koperweis, and he is formerly of Animals as Leaders. He's the drummer on this album, as he was the drummer with Animals as Leaders. And he is the drummer on this album. I repeat that primarily because if you were looking at the credits of the album, you would see the name of Matt Alston as the drummer for Machine Head. Matt Alston is considered the drummer for the band, but he is not the drummer who recorded the drum tracks heard on Of Kingdom and Crown. So we will give credit where credit is properly due, and that goes to Niveen Koperweis. Okay, Machine Head's recording history began in 1994 when they released their debut album entitled Burn My Eyes. And this was a fairly well-received album critically and by fans. They had developed over the period of 1991 through their debut release quite a significant following, and they had a couple of lineup changes before their first release, but they did have quite a bit of success with their debut album, and in fact it moved over 400,000 copies for the record label that it was out on, Roadrunner Records. And this would be Roadrunner Records' highest selling debut album until 1999's release by Slipknot of their debut album, self-titled, and that album sold a little bit more. But that album, which came out in 1994 from Machine Head, Burn My Eyes, it really was more of a groove thrash album. It had it was closer in tune, if you would, to the kind of sound you're hearing out of KINGDØM and CRØWN than with some of the stuff they released with their sophomore album going forward up to 2007's The Blackening, which was probably the highlight or high water mark for their career up to this point. That album really had some of their best material. It was their 6th studio album, and it had a wonderful collection of just groove-oriented thrash songs, and really did a very good job of pushing the band forward. Their subsequent albums, Unto the Locust and Bloodstone and Diamonds, really did go a little bit higher in terms of sales and charting numbers for initial release periods, but The Blackening is definitely the album that fans and critics alike will hold up and point to and say, this is the album to listen to from this band. But that is, in my opinion, until now, with Of KINGDÖM and CRØWN.
There's a fog inside my mind, so much hatred and doom when the dead roses bloom as I sabotage my pride. Mind is fading, going crazy. I feel dead inside. My life is unhallowed.
The clip that I've just played is taken from the album's 6th song, which is entitled Unhallowed. I like this clip because it is a slightly slower piece than the song that I opened the video with. It is a little bit more mid-tempo, if you would, especially for this style of music, and it is also a little bit progressive. You get on this sample, you get the clean vocals and harsh vocals from Rob Flynn, and basically he seems to have roughly 4 vocal styles that he uses. He has his classic raspy delivery, he has clean vocals, screams, and death metal growls. Of his vocal style, Rob Flynn has been quoted as saying that he refers to it as barking on key. Of KINGDÖM and CRØWN has so far been fairly well received, and rightly so in my opinion. I cannot claim to have been a long-time fan of the band. I openly admit I did not know of the band when 2007's The Blackening came out. I became aware of them with Unto the Locust, and I went back and listened to their back catalog going all the way to their debut. So I am relatively new to them as a fan, but well, if you call 11 years new, I've been a fan for that long. But I do want to be clear, I'm not speaking as somebody who's been with the band from day one. I am a fan of the band. I have gone back to their original music, but I became aware of them here in Taiwan. I became aware of them in 2011 with Unto the Locust, and so that's where my starting point was for them. And I thought that that was a pretty good album. I thought that it had a really good mix on it in terms of styles sonically. It had some of the heavier and more progressive elements mixed in, but it was also very thrashy and groove oriented. It wasn't overly new metal, but there were tones and hints of that in there. So I enjoyed that, but I went back and listened to The Blackening, and I would have to agree with critics who hold that up as the high water mark for the band. It is really a milestone in their career, and it's a brilliant album. But I think that of Kingdom and Crown, it comes right up to it. It touches the same levels and the same kind of importance in terms of its sonic delivery. It has this moment to it that I think is a wonderful quality that comes through in the music. So I would suggest that if you're a fan of them but you felt disappointed by some of their more recent release, especially the 2018 album Catharsis, I think that yes, there are reasons people might have been disheartened by the direction and the overall quality of that recording, but that's critics and fans. But by the same token, if you look at the actual numbers for the sales of Catharsis, sales are not bad, and the tracking numbers for songs from the album on digital music streaming sites place a few of the songs from the album fairly high. So the band performed them live while they were touring in support of the album. So it certainly had enough support, but it was not a brilliantly received album critically. So getting back to Of Kingdom and Crown, it is the first time that the band is venturing into the area of creating a concept album. And here the concept is kind of a dystopian style landscape that is brimming with conflict and unrest. The story centers around two characters, one of whom has recently lost the love of his life to a tragic slaying in a shooting spree, and then the other character is the one who actually performed this killing spree, and he had been a victim of loss himself, and in losing his mother, he fell under the control or spell, if you would, of a very charismatic leader who inspired him to take this violent action. And so the lyrics are a little bit dark and a little bit on the unpleasant side, but sonically, musically, the performances are great. The vocal performances are wonderful. You may not enjoy the lyrical quality, but the story is not bad. The lyrics are not my favorite point of the album, but I think the sonic elements that the vocal performance delivers are delivered with incredible passion and energy, and the instrumental performances are just top-notch. So I would really suggest you listen to it for those elements and not be bothered too much by the content of the story. If you were looking, for instance, at the song Kill Thy Enemies, that particular track seems to be a little bit too politically skewed, showing too much of Rob Flynn's personal views. And that's, again, part of the distinctive nature of this album. It's the first time that Rob has created an album that is more a story, a concept album. Most of his song lyrics over the years have been of a personal nature, being his political or personal ideologies and espousing his thoughts, however they are. On this album, it seems he still can't help but infect some of the lyrics with his particular slant, his perspective, and that's okay, but again, it sometimes can come through a little bit heavy-handed, and I think on the song Kill Thy Enemies it comes through just a little heavy-handed, but the song's musically beautiful. The last clip that I want to play a little bit of audio from is the closing track of the album, and that is entitled Arrows in Words from the Sky, and this particular snippet is taken from the breakdown of that song. I chose that particular snippet because I wanted to showcase and highlight a little bit of Vog's guitar work. I think that his rhythm playing alongside Rob is really quite wonderful, and it's really amazing how well Vog and Rob play together, since their partnership is still relatively young. I think Vog's only been associated with Machine Head for a little bit over a year. And it has just a natural quality to it. It comes through very organically, and his performance on the album is just brilliant. And there are a few times where Rob and Vog go back and forth on lead parts that are quite beautiful. I give Of Kingdom and Crown 4.5 out of 5 stars. I think that the quality of production is really quite good. The mixing is quite good. There are a few times where I think maybe some of the songs might have been pared down just a little bit, but otherwise there's really not too much fat on the album. I think the interludes, of which there are 3, and they take up a little bit over 2 minutes of playing time on the album, they work to advance the story, to progress the idea of the concept album, but in some ways they're kind of unnecessary. They could be thrown away, and you could rely just on the lyrical content to tell the story. So I think it's a really good album. I think it's a very strong album, and I think it's probably the best Machine Head album since The Blackening from 2007. I think Unto the Locust and Bloodstone and Diamond were really quite good. Catharsis was not as good. And going back to their new metal style sound from Supercharger and onward, I think, or I should say preceding Supercharger, I think those albums weren't as strong overall in quality or performance. I think that Of Kingdom and Crown really delivers a brilliant package in total, and it's a fairly easy listen. One complaint I would have on the mixing would be that it seems sometimes the person who did the mixing has a little bit too much fun taking audio from channel to channel, going from the left to the right, and it's a little bit unnecessary, a little bit, it feels, when you're listening to the music with headphones, it feels a little bit forced, not just a natural flow, or that there's a reason for this switching from channel to channel. It's just there, and it's obvious, it kind of sticks out. But other than those minor complaints, I really have a very positive feel and a positive opinion about this album, so I do give it a 4.5 out of 5. I hope you'll check it out. It's worth your time and attention if you're into this heavier style of music. And thank you very much for staying with me through this video. Until next time, peace, stay well, bye-bye.